testimony, my sharing with you tonight, is rooted in the phrase, "The Lord is faithful." Let me read to you from 2 Timothy 4, verses 1 through 7 and 17 through 18, because it echoes my own sentiment. It's Paul's words, but I identify to a degree. When in 2 Timothy chapter 4, he said, "I charge you," speaking to Timothy, "therefore before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who will judge the living and the dead at his appearing and his kingdom, to preach the word. Be ready in season, out of season, convince, rebuke, exhort, all long-suffering and teaching. The time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires. Because they have itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers, and they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables. But you be watchful in all things. Endure the afflictions. Do the work of an evangelist and fulfill your ministry. I am ready to be poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure is at hand. I fought the good fight, I finished the race, and I kept the faith." And then in verses 17 and 18 of the same chapter, "The Lord has stood with me and strengthened me, so that the message might be preached fully through me, and that all the Gentiles might hear. And also I was delivered out of the mouth of the lion, and the Lord will deliver me from every evil work and preserve me for his heavenly kingdom. To him be glory forever and ever. Amen." The reflections that I want to share with you tonight have grown out of an awareness of God's grace in my life over these last 10 years especially. The things that he has brought me through in these 10 years, and what I also believe he has purposed to establish in terms of my ministry here at this church. If anybody has quoted Romans 8:28, it's me. When Paul said the Lord had stood with him and strengthened him, I say to you that I believe I can say the same to a degree. Because the last 10 years have been filled with a lot of physical and emotional challenges. In 2012, the brain tumor that suddenly appeared when I first came here was a tumor that they said would not grow and was prenatal and no problems. But as soon as I got here, started having severe seizures, EMS come into the house a couple of times, and blood all over the bedroom and blood all over Teresa, her holding me in her arms, because I was literally chewing my tongue off. Went through those seizures, and finally, with the help of a doctor and some great miracles, as all of you know, I was recommended to Duke Hospital, to Dr. Alan Friedman, the leading neurosurgeon in the world, and was told I'd have to wait a year. 2 weeks after I was told that, we get a call and said, "Be here in a few days and he's going to do your surgery." What was supposed to be a 6-hour surgery turned into an hour and a half, because when they got in there, they discovered, he kept saying, "This is not what I'm seeing on the MRI. This is not what I'm seeing on the MRI." And he had him reread it twice while he's got my head open. And he said, "I don't care what you're saying, what I see is something different. I'm taking it out." And he took it out, and an hour and a half later walks out, and Teresa thought, "Oh God, he's dead." Because the neurosurgeon, the anesthesiologist, and the nurse all said I was dying. And I felt like I was with the headaches. And he said, he hugged her, and he said, "I got it." pulled it right out. They were supposed to have put 2 tubes in there to drain the liquid out of that cyst and let it that way my rest of my life. He said, I took it out. Since then, I've had a couple of small, petite mal seizures, but none of those in the last 2 years during the day. And at night, I still can have an occasional nocturnal seizure, but it's small. But Teresa knows when it's happening. Nonetheless, when I went back to Duke a year ago, they said, it's gone, your brain's coming together. In other words, you can no longer say, I have a hole in my head. It's gone. But just when you think things are going pretty good, the surgery was in 2016, then 2 years later, I'm diagnosed with prostate cancer. And I was cured of that. The treatment I had was pretty much cutting edge, and it was a bit risky, but I've had no residual effects whatsoever. And all the tests keep coming back negative. Well, you think, okay, good. We got all these diseases out of the way. Now I can move forward. And then 2021, in the middle of COVID, I've been told I have liver disease. My sister had just died of liver disease. My grandfather on my mom's side had died of liver disease. My dad's mother had died of liver disease. And the doctor is telling me that based on their tests of my liver, that he wanted to go ahead and put me on a liver transplant. And I said, I'm not game. Is there something else we can do? And he said, well, it's going to take a major lifestyle change, but I'm not sure it'll reverse it in time. So as you know, I don't get to have cookies anymore. And a lot of other things. But nonetheless, when I had a Zoom meeting with the doctor, he stood up in front of the camera and he clapped his hands and he said, Mr. Ford, all your liver scores are perfect. Just keep doing what you're doing. Well, you know, then you, like everybody else, you have COVID, and the abiding reality sets in on you after a while. That God's ongoing healing and grace in your life must certainly have a purpose. And the question I keep asking is why? Because I declare to you, without false humility, but in all truth, I'm not special. There are other people who have died with brain tumors that are good, godly people. There are other men who have died from prostate cancer. There are other people who are waiting for a new liver. But for some reason, I keep getting these blessings. Well, I declare to you tonight, I am not special. I am called and sent of God to do a job. And that's why I have experienced His healing. It's, I have a job for you, I'm not done yet. But all these diseases are to remind you that without my grace, you are nothing. It's also been a time of personal loss. My dad died in December of 2018, my sister in February of 2019, and my brother in March of 2019. I don't know where my brother's buried. He died of COVID, we think, in China, and they did not ship him home. Teresa's dad died in May of 2019. And she is right now with her mother, whose Alzheimer's and dementia is progressively getting worse. Are we different than other people? No. All of us have stories like that to tell. So there's been the physical and the emotional challenges in the last 10 years, but then there's also been the ecclesiastical challenges or church challenges. When I came here, this church was coming out of some tough times. Everybody who was here when I came, would you raise your hand and hold them up? Let the others look at you. I guess I could say honestly, it was no picnic for you folks. You'd gone through a lot of heartache and a lot of disappointment and a lot of stress. But ironically enough, every church I've ever pastored, God called me to, had a pre-existing problems, and my job was to go in and bring healing. And I'll never forget Charlie Harris saying, "Mark, yeah, I want to talk to you." We're on the phone. He said, "I see where your church runs 300-400 people." I said, "Yeah, it does. Things are going really well." And he says, "I hear you're talking to the committee here." I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, don't expect that here. This is a tough town. This is a tough place." So he and I talked, and he said, "Well, you sound like you're the perfect candidate for it. Church with problems, church needing to turn around." And I'll never forget that day when Tracy and I are standing on the hill looking over the church. We just finished building a new worship center, a new family life center was going up. The church is packed and running and blessed, and all of a sudden Tracy puts her arm around me and says, "Things are going really well, aren't they?" And I said, "Yes, they are." And she said, "I guess it's time to leave." Because that's always been our ministry. I said, "Well, it just so happens." At which point I thought I was headed for divorce. Because I had not filled her in on all the information. But anyway, when I came here, it was because that's been my calling. And when God called me here, it was a church that needed, I believe, to move towards congregationalism because you had been pastor-driven. Is that a good way of saying it, Tim? Yes. You were pastor-driven and abused to a degree. So we tried to introduce the idea that the church should run the church and handle the problems and run the affairs of the body, and that's called congregationalism. That's what Baptists are supposed to do. And to have elders. It was a church needing to recapture its historical doctrinal roots. And obviously, it's become a church that needs to get ready for the future, because, folks, the future's not looking good. My gracious, we went through COVID for 2 years. Y'all still remember COVID, right? What a nightmare for pastors and for churches. And then throw on top of it all the social, cultural, denominational challenges and problems that we're facing. Wokeism, progressivism, neo-Marxism, Black Lives Matter, CRT, LGBTQ, all this stuff, and then our own denomination, in case you haven't heard, last week, is under investigation by the Department of Justice. I think that's more about persecution than about justice. We've been a church that had to go through staff transitions, building improvements. We had a building project in the middle of COVID, for God's sakes. And I said I'd never take another church with a building program. God laughed at me, I guess. We've had new membership, demographics, and changes. These kind of things usually take 7 years, but given COVID and everything, we're about on target for these transitions. So I'm just saying to you, first of all, the Lord stood with me and strengthened me through all this. And it was the Lord. But the Lord also delivered me from the mouth of every lion, to use Paul's word, and every work of evil, that the message might be preached fully through me, he said. I share with you what God has done in my heart now over the last year or so. God is emboldening me to stand for the truth in this day in a way I never thought I would. church I've been in, I've always come in with the goal to bring peace and harmony and be a peacemaker, because that's what the church needed. But suddenly this role of bringing peace and harmony has translated into step out and be a leader and speak boldly for my gospel in this world, in this community. And that was a little bit against my personality. He's been empowering me in a way that I give him glory for, to declare the truth in the face of false teaching, false teachers. My education, my life, everything has played a role in, I think, if nothing else, for the day right now. And God is engaging me with opportunities to minister in areas I never would have thought I'd have had the opportunity. And again, I'm not special. Part of my reticence in talking this way is I'm trying to convince you I'm not special. God has been working through the work in my health, in my life, my training, my education, everything, to lead me to this point, but it's God's doing and His God's work. And put it in theological terms you might understand, I am not in my hula hoop. I'm out of my comfort zone in a lot of ways. But, like never before, I'm ready to be poured out, as Paul said, as a drink offering to fight the good fight. And I'm wanting to finish the race, and I want to keep the faith to the very end. I believe that in all of this that I've shared with you and all that God is doing and has done, and I believe will do, I have a clear sense of God's calling for me to be your pastor here for such a time as this. But I won't be able to do it without you. We're living in some tough days. If this world ever needed for people to stand for the truth and for word and for doctrine and to get away from being men pleasers, it's now. I feel a clear leading to pour out my life into this church and this community and to help us be strong and true to the Lord like I've never felt in my life. That's not to say I'm not tired at times. Some will laugh, but I am 65 now. So I don't feel like I did when I was 55. I feel a clear impulse in my life to equip, train, and pour my life into what I think will be future leaders for the church. Because the time is short. And I think it's a privilege and a joy for me to get to work with Justin and be able to pour my life into him. I feel a clear sense of urgency regarding the need to equip and protect and establish our next generation against the onslaught of woke, CRT, progressivism, neo-Marxism, you name it. We don't have time to play. We've got to start protecting our young people today. We don't have tomorrow. That's our biggest goal right now. My daughter shared with us about 2 5-year-olds in her class. One is being changed into a girl and one is being changed into a boy. 5. LGBTQ is not in San Francisco, it's in Highlands. CRT is in our universities and our seminaries. What was it, Midwestern? You see, now is not a time for me to ride off into the sunset, though I'm tempted. Now is a time for us to grit our teeth and get busy to do the work of God in this church when around us there are so many that are falling by the wayside. So I want to clear up any misunderstandings, misinformation, fake news. I am not retiring. I've been asked that question so many times, I don't know where it came from. You say, but you've got a new home. Yes, we have a new home. It's an hour away, a little over an hour away. Hour and 5 minutes if you drive like Teresa, a little more if you drive like me. We are actually going to be only 45 minutes away from the Asheville Hospital, and here I'm an hour and 15 minutes away if I'm needed there. I am not planning to stay at my house the full time. We sold our house, as all of you know, and we did it at a time when everybody was buying houses and spending money left and right and had a bidding war on our house, and we sold that house for a nice penny. And as a result, we paid off 2 cars, and we're building a house in South Carolina with cash. It's just a good time to do it. We also are, Teresa's mother is getting worse, and we anticipate that she's going to have to because she's the only sibling that's taking care of her. One sister's in Montana, another sister is in Florida, and a brother who doesn't care. That leaves Teresa. Her mother will probably spend some time on our new porch. Teresa is retired from the South Carolina school system, full retirement, and part here. And so she's in a position to be able to quit now and take care of her mother and to hold down the fort for us. You say, well, how are you going to pastor up here? Well, it's easy. I preach on Sunday morning. We go home on Sunday afternoon. Monday morning early, I get here. And I'm going to have to now because, especially in the summer, I've been asked to do the women's Bible study at the club again for next year. We have 2 or 3 places we can choose from to stay on Monday night and then be here Tuesday. And I don't know about the men's study. That may be coming too. They haven't told me yet. But I will be here in the saddle and working on Tuesdays, and I very likely will go home on Tuesday. But then Teresa is coming back with me on Wednesday, and she'll be here all day because she's going to start teaching the children on Wednesday night. And I will continue to do what I do here. Then on Thursday, I may elect to stay at the house, and she has sworn to me on 2 Bibles, so to speak, that she will leave me do what I'm supposed to be doing, which is studying and praying in my office at the church, at the house. But if I am needed, I am always 24/7. Always have been, always will be. This time it may take more than 10 or 15 minutes, it may take me a little over an hour, but I'll be here. Most people talk to me on the phone, though. It's the people that text me at 10 or 11 o'clock at night that irritate the fire out of me. When the phone dings, I get irritated. Yeah, I wish it'd just ring. But anyway, we're always available, always will be, and we'll continue our ministry. And if we need to be here on Thursdays, we'll be here on Thursdays. That's no problem. And then be off on Friday and Saturdays always, and back again on Sunday. I will remain your pastor, and I will remain at your behest, and I will remain available to you as I have been now. And if for some reason there's something like a broken water line in this church, and it's happened 3 times to me, I'm calling Justin. And Justin's calling you. Because I always get called by the emergency system saying, we have an indication you've got a flood and you're such and such, and okay, all right, here we'll go. But I will remain your pastor and be your pastor as long as you want me to. I believe that this church is positioned, not just geographically, but I believe we're positioned spiritually right now to be a light on the hill in a very chaotic and dark time. This church is standing when so many are not. And we are blessed financially. Slowly but surely that negative is going down. And we know, I'll just tell you, I've had people leaving notes and calling and saying they're going to make donations, large donations. Why do you think God's blessing this church? Because we're standing. And we're going to be true. And as long as I'm your pastor, that's what I hope we will continue to do. To stand for the gospel of salvation and declare a message of hope to many who are looking for some light in this dark world. This church can and should remain grounded in our historic faith. And even if our denomination falls off a cliff, that really doesn't matter to me anymore. I'm sorry. I don't care what happens to the denomination. All I care about is where God has put me and where God has placed me. This church can and should be pursuing intentionally the training of our children. I go back to that. In the fear of God through reverent worship and knowledge of His Word. They're not going to get spiritual help in schools. They're not going to get it in the world. They're not going to get it in the social media. They've got to get it here. And we've got to be intentional about this. This church should see discipleship maybe as more important than missions. Do you realize that the gospel is thriving in places like China underground, in North Africa, South America? Guess where the gospel is not thriving? Guess where our attendance rate now is down to 31%? USA. Guess where our children no longer know simple Bible stories, and adults in our pews no longer know the scriptures. Now, if you still believe those things are important, and you still believe that we should hold on to those and declare those and preach those, then it's time for all of us to step up and say, we've got to do this. For the children and the young adults and the adults and everybody that are here, we've got to be strong, because I just don't see things getting better. We are here to equip the saints and help everyone be ready in these last days. I really do think our church can be a haven of rest and a retreat from the world and build up a fellowship and sweet communion. I guess y'all have noticed we've been having lots of folks coming in. Lots of visitors. People looking for a church that preaches the truth. But one of the things they say is, I just love how sweet the fellowship is there. Yeah. This is the vision that God has shared with me and given to me, and as your pastor, and I hope it's one that I continue to work on and set in motion, and I do want to establish before I retire. I don't anticipate retiring for 3 years. Sergio says 7. What does he know? He's young. But if and when I do retire, whenever that may be, I remain available to this church or other churches. Charlie Harrison again told me not long ago when he visited, he said, Mark, you need to go into the intentional supply pastorate and work in churches that need people. Well, I may do that, but for right now, I believe I'm where I'm at. I have this big itch to write. There's a book inside of me somewhere, and I'm going to probably start pursuing some of that. But I just wanted you to know this so there'd be no more misinformation or fake news out there. Now, one last thing. I am going to take a sabbatical on October the 10th through November the 10th. I've not had one yet. I'm supposed to take one every 3 years, so if I were to take all 3 together, that'd be 90 days. But of course, I wouldn't do that. But I really could use, after the building and the COVID and all this stuff that's going on, I could use some time to step back, spend some time in prayer, and spend time reading and writing, which is what the Constitution and bylaws require of me when I take a sabbatical. It requires the pastor do that. Who can take a sabbatical when you have COVID? Who can take a sabbatical when you're having a building program? Who can, it just never worked out. But now I think I can do so, and I believe that I have a wonderful staff to work with. They can certainly handle things or contact me if needed. Any emergency, death, or something, I'm still in contact. But I will step out of the office and out of the pulpit. I've also averaged only 10 days of vacation every year, and I'm supposed to take 15. So I'm tired. And I need a break. So I can come back and do these things that I believe God's called me to do. Dr. Jeff Brown, remember the gentleman who did the Easter sunrise out here? Dr. Jeff Brown will be filling the pulpit for 3 of those Sundays, and Justin will get his launch on November the 2nd. And I will sneak in for that one. Because part of my responsibility is mentoring and grading him, not just in terms of our arrangement here at the church, but also in terms of his seminary where he's going. Justin will be conducting the prayer times on Wednesday nights, and Dennis Hall and Phil Jackson are going to take over my men's Bible study on Wednesday mornings for that month. So I've got the bases covered with some good people. But that will occur October the 10th. You said, are you going to have to move during then? No. I told Teresa, we're moving before then. You are not taking any of my sabbatical to carry boxes. I refuse. We will be moved in, and then I will take my sabbatical. But that's the goal. The house is coming along, and it's a wonderful place. In case you don't know, it's a community-supported agriculture. It is some people think it sounds like a cult. It's 54 new homes in this community around a farm. Our HOAs go to support a farmer who produces farm-to-table vegetables of every kind. We have chickens, we have turkeys, and even looking at lambs. And Teresa is part of the American Chestnut Society through Clemson now, and is working with them to plant American chestnuts and revive them in our community. It is a farm. Guess where I'll be? Not on the farm. Teresa's traded in her stilettos for muck boots. Go, girl. It's all yours. And she and I have a loving arrangement and understanding about that, to let me pursue my calling and pursue what I believe the Lord has laid on my heart to do. So it's kind of exciting for us, but right now you pray for Teresa. Her situation with her mom is deteriorating. And everybody wants mom to stay at the house, have somebody come in the morning, take care of her, and in the afternoon, hope that she's okay. So it's probably the perfect time for Teresa and I to move down so she can pick up her mother and put her on the porch and sit with us while Teresa works at the house. So that is my testimony and my vision and my heart. I've revealed as much as I can to you all. I've always had an open door policy, have I not? Rarely is that door ever closed, right, Pat? People come in, knock on the door. I love it when they knock on the door and walk in and say, hey, can I talk to you, and have a seat before I can answer? That's okay. That's called an open door policy. It remains so, but also my heart remains open to you to tell you exactly what I've been needing to tell you for a few months now. Okay? Any questions? Floor is yours.
For those of us who haven't been around, new, or old new, but where are you teaching at a club? What club is that?
The Highlands Country Club.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I'm teaching the women on Monday morning, and what a joy. There, I think Betty told me there was close to 80 last time. And the men, I think, had more than we've ever had this past Tuesday. For me, it's just a wonderful opportunity to share Christ and to share the truth. And what I find so pleasing is so many of them want to hear. They refer to, I'll kid around with Justin on this. Justin goes to the men's thing, and Justin's gotten to wear, he's got a bad habit. He's starting to wear a tie and a coat. And he'd show up to the men's Bible study, and finally one of them said, "Preacher, is that your pledge?" Now, if you don't know what that is, that's a fraternal thing where the pledge has to do all the dirty work and dress up while everybody else there. They call him the pledge, and now it's stuck. I don't know if they're going to ever call you anything else. He's the pledge. Anyway, they love him and they embraced him also. So that's where we're at. Anything else? If you want to speak to me in private, please do so. I need to see the elders. I think I got 2 of you here tonight. I need to see you in just a moment. Okay? All hearts and minds clear, yes, Patty.
Could we please ask that the men take the chairs from around the tables and stack them up on the walls? Yes.
Yeah.
So we can have all the tables empty. Thank you.
We can do that, and please, this is going to be, the weather especially permitting, this is going to be quite a shindig. And our own star, David Bonner, and his wife Cindy are singing Southern gospel music for us. Yeah. So we're looking forward to that.
How you feel about it comes in.
I told you we don't go to that.
What?
Southern gospel.
Southern gospel?
You didn't tell me that.
This is one time, Joe. But what? We're actually going to sing "I'll Fly Away," one of the songs. I just want you to know.
Does he know your chant?
My chant. Oh, my Gregorian chant? No, there's some things, I said I was going to pour my life into it. There's some things that be a waste of time. Anything else? Let's have, if nothing else, all hearts and minds clear. If you want to call me or talk to me separate, that's fine. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this church, what you're doing, what you've done, what you're doing, and what we feel confident you will continue to do as we, in faith, by your grace, obey and follow you. Make this church strong and make it a light when so many others are turning off the light of your word and truth. Blessings upon each that are here tonight, and may God's blessings be richly upon them all. In the name of Christ we pray.